The Stoic Rules of Business. How to make more money, understand customers, and build a business that lasts. Imagine two coffee shops on the same street. They sell almost the same coffee. Their prices are almost identical. Their stores are roughly the same size. One struggles every month just to pay rent. The other is packed with customers, generates strong profits, and eventually opens a second location. So what made the difference? Was it luck? Was it better coffee? Was it a bigger advertising budget? Maybe, but very often the difference is something much deeper. The successful owner understands people. He understands money. He understands risk. And, most importantly, he understands himself. More than 2,000 years ago, Stoic philosophers like Marcus Aurelius, Seneca, and Epictetus weren't teaching people how to run coffee shops, restaurants, or retail stores. But they were obsessed with something every entrepreneur desperately needs: how to think clearly when emotions are trying to control you. And that may be one of the most valuable business skills you can develop. Because business is ultimately a psychological game. You are dealing with your own fear, your customers' desires, your employees' behavior, your competitors, your money, and uncertainty. So today, we're going to break down the Stoic psychology of building a profitable small business. How should you invest your money? Where should you open your business? How do you attract customers? How should you talk to them? How can you understand what they actually want? And how do you make decisions that increase your chances of making more dollars without destroying your business chasing quick profits? Let's begin with the first rule. Rule number 1. Control what you can control. Epictetus built much of his philosophy around a simple distinction. Some things are under our control, others are not. This sounds obvious, but business owners violate this principle constantly. Imagine you own a small restaurant. A new competitor opens 2 blocks away. Suddenly, you're worried. What if customers leave? What if they lower their prices? What if they have better reviews? What if they spend thousands on advertising? You can spend the entire week thinking about your competitor. But here's the problem. You don't control your competitor. You control your food, your service, your cleanliness, your pricing, your customer experience, your marketing, your costs, your reputation, and your response. That's where your energy belongs. The Stoic business owner asks one question whenever something goes wrong. What part of this situation can I actually influence? Suppose sales fall 15%. The emotional owner panics. The disciplined owner investigates. Did foot traffic decrease? Did repeat customers stop returning? Did prices become too high? Did service quality decline? Did a competitor enter the market? Did online reviews get worse? Business becomes much easier to understand when problems become questions instead of emotional disasters. That's the first Stoic advantage: clarity. Rule number 2. Don't start with the product, start with the problem. Many entrepreneurs fall in love with their idea. That's dangerous. Customers don't care how much you love your idea. They care about what your business does for them. Think about a local barbershop. A customer isn't simply buying a haircut. Maybe he's buying confidence before a date. Maybe he wants to look professional before an interview. Maybe he wants 30 minutes where he can relax. Maybe he wants a barber who remembers exactly how he likes his hair. The haircut is the product, but the desired outcome is the real purchase. This distinction changes everything. A Stoic tries to see reality as it is rather than as he wishes it to be. Business owners should do the same. Don't ask, why don't people understand how good my product is? Ask, what problem does my customer believe I solve? That question can make you money. Rule number 3. Learn to read the customer's mind without guessing.
You cannot literally read someone's mind, but you can observe behavior, and behavior leaves clues. Imagine you own a small bakery. Customers repeatedly walk inside, look at your display, ask the price of a certain item, and then leave without buying. That's information. Maybe the price feels too high. Maybe the value isn't obvious. Maybe the product doesn't look fresh enough. Maybe customers don't understand what makes it special. Now imagine another item constantly sells out by noon. That's information too. Your customers are voting with their dollars. Smart business owners listen to those votes. Watch what customers ask. Watch what they hesitate over. Watch what they buy together. Watch what they complain about. Watch what they repeatedly request. And, most importantly, watch what brings them back. Don't assume, observe. Then ask questions. A simple question like, "What made you choose us today?" can teach you more than you might expect. Or, "Is there anything you wish we offered?" Or, "What almost stopped you from buying?" The goal isn't manipulation. The goal is understanding. Because the better you understand your customer's problem, the easier it becomes to create real value. Rule number 5. How you talk to customers can be worth thousands of dollars. A customer walks into your store and says, "This seems expensive." There are two ways to respond. The defensive owner says, "Everything is expensive now. Our costs went up." Maybe that's true, but psychologically, you've turned the conversation into an argument. A better response might be, "I understand. What are you comparing it with?" Now you're learning. Maybe price isn't actually the problem. Maybe the customer doesn't understand the difference between your service and a cheaper one. Maybe they're worried about quality. Maybe they're unsure whether they need the premium option. The Stoic principle here is emotional control. Don't fight the customer's emotion. Understand it. When someone complains, your first job isn't to win. Your first job is to discover the real problem. Listen, clarify, then solve what can be solved. A calm business owner has an enormous advantage because customers can feel desperation. They can also feel confidence. Rule number 6. Don't chase every customer. This sounds strange. If you want more money, shouldn't you want everyone? No. Trying to sell to everyone often makes your business weaker. Imagine you own a premium barbershop. Your ideal customer values consistency, cleanliness, convenience, and a high-quality experience. Another customer only cares about finding the absolute cheapest haircut in town. Trying to compete for both can create a contradiction. The Stoic entrepreneur accepts reality. Not everyone is your customer. You need to know who you serve exceptionally well. Ask yourself, who benefits most from what I offer? Who comes back repeatedly? Who refers friends? Who spends without constantly fighting over price? Those customers are telling you where your strongest market may be. Rule number 7. Location is not about cheap rent. This mistake destroys many local businesses. An owner finds a location for $2,000 a month and another for $4,000. He immediately thinks,
The $2,000 location saves me $24,000 a year. Maybe. But what if the expensive location generates an extra $8,000 in monthly gross profit because your target customers actually pass through that area? Then cheap rent wasn't cheap. It was expensive in another way. For a local business, location should be evaluated through customer behavior. Who lives nearby? Who works nearby? When do people visit the area? Can they see your business? Can they park? Can they reach it easily? Are your ideal customers already there? What businesses surround you? What happens during evenings? What happens on weekends? A great location for a coffee shop may be terrible for a furniture store. A great location for a gym may be terrible for a luxury boutique. Don't choose a location because you personally like it. Choose based on how your customers behave. Rule number 8. Revenue is not profit. This lesson sounds basic, yet it destroys businesses. Suppose your business generates $50,000 per month. Sounds impressive. But then, rent costs $8,000, payroll costs $18,000, inventory costs $10,000. Utilities, insurance, software, marketing, taxes, repairs, fees, and other expenses keep eating the rest. Suddenly, your $50,000 business isn't as profitable as it looked. Revenue can feed the ego. Profit keeps the business alive. The Stoic approach is to look at the numbers without emotional attachment. Track what comes in. Track what goes out. Understand your gross margin. Understand your operating expenses. Understand your cash flow. Know which products make money. Know which products barely make anything. You don't need to become an accountant, but you cannot intelligently run a business if you refuse to understand the financial engine underneath it. Rule number 9. Every dollar should have a job. Now we get to investment. Imagine your business makes an extra $10,000. What should you do? Buy a nicer car? Redesign the entire office? Open another location? Hire more people? Spend everything on advertising? The Stoic answer would begin with restraint. Don't spend money simply because you have money. Ask what the dollar is supposed to accomplish. Some money may need to stay as cash reserves. Some may go toward replacing equipment. Some may go toward marketing experiments. Some may go toward employee training. Some may eventually be available to the owner. But don't confuse business cash with personal wealth. A profitable month doesn't guarantee a profitable year. Unexpected repairs happen. Customers disappear. Economic conditions change. Equipment breaks. Employees leave. The disciplined business owner prepares before the storm. Rule number 10. Invest where the bottleneck is. Suppose your restaurant is already full every Saturday night. Would spending another $5,000 on Saturday night advertising make sense? Probably not if you cannot serve more customers. Your bottleneck may be capacity. Now imagine you have plenty of empty tables, great reviews, and good service, but nobody knows you exist. Then your bottleneck may be awareness. Different problem, different investment. This is one of the most important rules of capital allocation. Don't invest where investment feels exciting. Invest where the constraint exists. If customers complain about slow service, fix operations. If nobody walks in, investigate location, visibility, and marketing. If many people visit but few purchase, investigate the offer, pricing, sales process, and trust. If customers buy once but never return, investigate the experience. Your money should attack the biggest constraint. Rule number 11. Test before you bet big. Entrepreneurs love big moves, a second location, a massive advertising campaign, a complete renovation, a new product line. But Stoicism teaches us to respect uncertainty. You don't know the future, so don't pretend you do. Test. Instead of spending $20,000 immediately on a new marketing idea, run a smaller experiment when possible. Measure the results. What did you spend? How many people responded? How many became customers? How much gross profit did those customers produce? Did they return? Then decide whether to scale. Business isn't about being fearless. It's about taking intelligent risks. Rule number 12. Price is psychology. Many small business owners are terrified of pricing. They think, if I raise my price by $5, everyone will leave. Sometimes customers will leave, but sometimes the bigger problem is that your business is underpriced. Imagine you sell a service for $100. After all costs, only $10 remains. You need enormous volume to make meaningful profit. If customers genuinely receive significantly more than $100 of perceived value,
your pricing structure may need examination. But simply raising prices isn't the answer either. The question is, what value does the customer receive? How does your offer compare with alternatives? How price sensitive is your target customer? Can you create different tiers? Basic, standard, premium. Now customers aren't only deciding buy or don't buy, they're choosing which option fits me. Good pricing aligns the customer's perceived value with sustainable economics for the business. Rule number 14, trust compounds like money. One customer can be worth far more than one transaction. Suppose a customer spends $40 at your business. You might think that customer is worth $40. But what if they return twice every month for 3 years? That's 40 times 2 times 12 times 3. That's $2,880 in revenue before considering margins. Now imagine they bring friends. The economics change dramatically. This is why sacrificing trust for a quick sale is often terrible business. You might make an extra $20 today and lose thousands in future business. Stoicism places enormous importance on character. Business should too. Keep promises, be transparent, fix mistakes, don't hide important information. Don't sell customers things they clearly don't need. A reputation takes time to build and seconds to damage. Rule number 15. The best customer is often the one you already have. Many owners obsess over new customers. More ads, more clicks, more leads, more followers. But existing customers already know you. If they trust you and like your service, getting them to return may be much easier than convincing a stranger. So ask, why would this customer come back? Maybe you remember their preferences. Maybe you make rebooking simple. Maybe your quality is consistent. Maybe you follow up. Maybe you have a loyalty program that genuinely rewards repeat business. Maybe you simply provide such a good experience that going somewhere else feels risky. Retention is powerful. Because when customers return, revenue becomes more predictable. Rule number 16. Stop competing only on price. If your only advantage is being cheaper, someone can always become cheaper than you. Compete on something harder to copy. Speed, convenience, trust, expertise, experience, consistency, selection, location, personalization, customer service. Suppose 3 local repair companies charge similar prices. One answers immediately, explains the problem clearly, arrives when promised, gives transparent pricing, and follows up afterward. Who feels safer to hire? That sense of certainty has value. Customers aren't always searching for the lowest number. Often they're trying to reduce risk. Rule number 17. Your business should reduce customer anxiety. Think about what happens before
They wonder, is this worth it? Can I trust them? What if something goes wrong? Am I paying too much? Will I regret this? The stronger your business becomes at answering these questions, the easier buying becomes. Reviews can reduce uncertainty. Clear guarantees can reduce uncertainty when appropriate. Transparent pricing can reduce uncertainty. Professional communication can reduce uncertainty. A clean store can reduce uncertainty. A clear website can reduce uncertainty. Even answering the phone professionally can reduce uncertainty. Everything communicates. Rule number 18. Watch what people do, not just what they say. Customers may tell you, I love this new product. Great. Did they buy it? They may say, I would definitely pay for that. Did they? Compliments are nice. Transactions are evidence. This doesn't mean customer feedback is useless. It means you should compare stated preferences with actual behavior. What gets purchased? What gets ignored? What gets returned? What gets reordered? What gets recommended? Behavior is one of the clearest signals available to you. Rule number 19. Don't let your ego run the business. This may be the most stoic rule of all. Your business is not your identity. If customers don't want a product, don't keep it simply because it was your idea. If an employee has a better solution,
Listen. If your marketing campaign fails, admit it. If the numbers say a product should be discontinued, examine the evidence. If the location isn't working, don't pretend everything is fine just because you signed the lease. Ego asks, how do I prove I was right? Business asks, what is actually working? Those are completely different questions. Rule number 21. Build systems, not constant heroics. If the business collapses whenever the owner takes one day off, you may not own a business. You may own a stressful job. Create systems. How should customers be greeted? How are complaints handled? How is inventory checked? How are employees trained? How are leads followed up? How is cash tracked? How do you measure customer satisfaction? How do you close the store? How do you open it? Systems turn good intentions into repeatable behavior, and repeatable behavior creates consistency. Rule number 21. Measure the numbers that matter. You don't need 100 metrics, but you need enough to understand what's happening. Depending on the business, useful numbers may include average transaction value, gross margin, labor cost, customer acquisition cost, repeat customer rate, conversion rate, cash balance, inventory turnover, monthly operating expenses, and customer lifetime value. Imagine you spend $500 in advertising. You get 50 leads. 10 become customers. Your acquisition cost is $50 per customer. But that number alone isn't enough. If each new customer generates only $20 in gross profit and never returns, that's a problem. If each customer generates hundreds of dollars in gross profit over time, the same $50 acquisition cost could be attractive. Numbers need context. Rule number 23. Don't confuse growth with success. Opening 3 locations isn't automatically better than operating one extremely profitable location. More employees don't automatically mean success. More revenue doesn't automatically mean more wealth. More followers don't automatically mean more customers. Growth creates complexity. Complexity creates risk. Before expanding, ask, is the first location consistently profitable? Are operations repeatable? Do we have enough cash? Can someone else run the current location successfully? Do we understand why customers choose us? If the first business is broken, expanding can multiply the problem. Rule number 24. Don't let your ego run the business. This may be the most stoic rule of all. Your business is not your identity. If customers don't want a product, don't keep it simply because it was your idea. If an employee has a better solution, listen. If your marketing campaign fails, admit it. If the numbers say a product should be discontinued, examine the evidence. If the location isn't working, don't pretend everything is fine just because you signed the lease. Ego asks, how do I prove I was right? Business asks, what is actually working? Those are completely different questions. Rule number 21. Build systems, not constant heroics. If the business collapses whenever the owner takes one day off, you may not own a business. You may own a stressful job. Create systems. How should customers be greeted? How are complaints handled? How is inventory checked? How are employees trained? How are leads followed up? How is cash tracked? How do you measure customer satisfaction? How do you close the store? How do you open it? Systems turn good intentions into repeatable behavior, and repeatable behavior creates consistency. Rule number 21. Measure the numbers that matter. You don't need 100 metrics, but you need enough to understand what's happening. Depending on the business, useful numbers may include average transaction value, gross margin, labor cost, customer acquisition cost, repeat customer rate, conversion rate, cash balance, inventory turnover, monthly operating expenses, and customer lifetime value. Imagine you spend $500 in advertising. You get 50 leads. 10 become customers. Your acquisition cost is $50 per customer. But that number alone isn't enough. If each new customer generates only $20 in gross profit and never returns, that's a problem. If each customer generates hundreds of dollars in gross profit over time, the same $50 acquisition cost could be attractive. Numbers need context. Rule number 24. Don't let your ego run the business. Opening 3 locations isn't automatically better than operating one extremely profitable location. More employees don't automatically mean success. More revenue doesn't automatically mean more wealth. More followers don't automatically mean more customers. Growth creates complexity. Complexity creates risk. Before expanding, ask, is the first location consistently profitable? Are operations repeatable? Do we have enough cash? Can someone else run the current location successfully? Do we understand why customers choose us? If the first business is broken, expanding can multiply the problem. Rule number 24. Don't let your ego run the business. This may be the most stoic rule of all. Your business is not your identity. If customers don't want a product, don't keep it simply because it was your idea. If an employee has a better solution, listen. If your marketing campaign fails, admit it. If the numbers say a product should be discontinued, examine the evidence. If the location isn't working, don't pretend everything is fine just because you signed the lease. Ego asks, how do I prove I was right? Business asks, what is actually working? Those are completely different questions. Rule number 21. Build systems, not constant heroics. If the business collapses whenever the owner takes one day off, you may not own a business. You may own a stressful job. Create systems. How should customers be greeted? How are complaints handled? How is inventory checked? How are employees trained? How are leads followed up? How is cash tracked? How do you measure customer satisfaction? How do you close the store? How do you open it? Systems turn good intentions into repeatable behavior. And repeatable behavior creates consistency. Rule number 21. Measure the numbers that matter. You don't need 100 metrics, but you need enough to understand what's happening. Depending on the business, useful numbers may include average transaction value, gross margin, labor cost, customer acquisition cost, repeat customer rate, conversion rate, cash balance, inventory turnover, inventory turnover, inventory turnover, and customer lifetime value. Imagine you spend $500 in advertising. You get 50 leads. 10 become customers. Your acquisition cost is $50 per customer. But that number alone isn't enough. If each new customer generates only $20 in gross profit and never returns, that's a problem. If each customer generates hundreds of dollars in gross profit over time, the same $50 acquisition cost could be attractive. Numbers need context. Rule number 24. Don't let your ego run the business. This may be the most stoic rule of all. Your business is not your identity. If customers don't want a product, don't keep it simply because it was your idea. If an employee has a better solution, listen. If your marketing campaign fails, admit it. If the numbers say a product should be discontinued, examine the evidence. If the location isn't working, don't pretend everything is fine just because you signed the lease. Ego asks, how do I prove I was right? Business asks, what is actually working? Those are completely different questions. Rule number 21. Build systems, not constant heroics. If the business collapses whenever the owner takes one day off, you may not own a business. You may own a stressful job. Create systems. Create systems. How should customers be greeted? How are complaints handled? How is inventory checked? How are employees trained? How are leads followed up? How is cash tracked? 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 Everything communicates. Everything communicates.
Everything we've discussed so far can make you a better business owner. But there is another level of business psychology that most entrepreneurs never learn. Because making more money isn't always about getting more customers. Sometimes it's about understanding the customers you already have at a much deeper level. And that brings us to one of the most powerful principles in business. Don't sell the product, understand the moment. Think about this. A customer walking into a coffee shop at 7:30 in the morning is psychologically different from someone entering that same coffee shop at 3 in the afternoon. The morning customer may be rushing to work. They want speed, consistency, convenience. They don't want to spend 10 minutes making decisions. The afternoon customer may want a place to sit, relax, meet someone, or work on a laptop. Same business, same coffee, different psychological need. And if you understand that difference, you can design the business around it. This is where observation becomes extremely valuable. Rule number 24. Study when your customers buy. Don't only ask what customers buy, ask when they buy. Suppose you run a small sandwich shop. Your biggest rush happens between 11:30 a.m. and 1:30 p.m. That tells you something. Your customers probably aren't simply hungry. Many of them are workers with limited lunch breaks. Now, speed becomes part of your product. If another restaurant takes 20 minutes to serve them and you can consistently do it in 7, you've created value without changing the sandwich. That's business psychology. Find out what matters in the customer's specific situation. Maybe it's speed. Maybe it's convenience. Maybe it's privacy. Maybe it's certainty. Maybe it's status. Maybe it's simplicity. The business that understands the situation can often outperform the business with the technically superior product. Rule number 25. Remove friction before spending more on advertising. Imagine spending $3,000 every month to bring people into your business. But when they arrive, parking is confusing. Nobody greets them. Prices aren't clear. The employee buying process is slow. And employees look annoyed. You don't have an advertising problem. You have a friction problem. Before buying more attention, examine what happens after you get the attention. Pretend you've never seen your business before. Walk through the entire customer experience. How easy is it to find you? How easy is it to understand what you sell? How easy is it to know the price? How easy is it to buy? How easy is it to ask for help? How easy is it to return? Every unnecessary obstacle gives the customer another opportunity to leave. Sometimes the fastest way to increase revenue isn't adding something, it's removing something. Remove confusion, remove waiting, remove unnecessary steps, remove uncertainty. Make doing business with you feel easy. Rule number 26. The customer remembers how the problem ended. Every business eventually makes mistakes. Wrong orders happen, appointments get delayed, products fail, employees misunderstand instructions. The Stoic business owner doesn't expect perfection. He prepares for imperfection. Imagine two customers experience the same mistake. At business A, the employee argues with the customer. At business B, the employee says, "I understand the problem. Let me see what I can do to fix it." The original mistake may be identical, but the customer's final memory can be completely different. This is why your response to a mistake can sometimes matter as much as the mistake itself. Don't train employees only to perform when everything goes right. Train them for what happens when something goes wrong.
What can they solve themselves? When should they call a manager? What can you reasonably offer? How quickly should you respond? A problem without a process becomes chaos. A problem with a process becomes manageable. That's Stoicism in action. You don't control whether every day goes perfectly. You control how prepared you are when it doesn't. Rule number 27. Don't let a competitor decide your strategy. This happens all the time. A competitor lowers prices, you lower prices. They run a discount, you run a bigger discount. They stay open later, you stay open later. They start advertising on a new platform, you immediately copy them. Soon you're no longer running your own business, you're reacting to theirs. The Stoic approach is different. Observe competitors, learn from them, but don't become emotionally controlled by them. If your competitor cuts prices by 20%, ask why. Maybe they're trying to gain market share. Maybe they're desperate for cash. Maybe their costs are lower. Maybe they're making a mistake. You don't know. So don't automatically copy the action. Look at your own numbers. Look at your own customers. Look at your own positioning. Then decide. Your competitor's strategy was designed for their business. Your strategy needs to make sense for yours. Rule number 28. Create a reason to return. Now imagine someone buys from you today. What happens tomorrow? Nothing? That's a missed opportunity. A great business doesn't only ask, how do I get the sale? It asks, how do I become the obvious choice next time? Consider a local coffee shop. Maybe the employee remembers the customer's usual order. A barbershop might make rebooking effortless. A car repair shop might send a useful service reminder. A cleaning company might make recurring appointments simple. Small details create familiarity, and familiarity reduces the psychological risk of buying. The customer thinks, I already know these people. I know what I'm going to get. I trust them. That trust becomes extremely valuable, because once customers trust you, competitors have to give them a reason to change. Rule number 30. Understand the difference between cheap and valuable. Suppose a customer sees two options. Option A costs $40. Option B costs $60. Why would anyone choose B? Because customers don't evaluate price alone. They evaluate what they believe they'll receive in return. If the $60 option saves time, lasts longer, provides better service, reduces risk, or delivers a noticeably better experience, it may feel like the smarter purchase. Your job isn't simply to convince people that something expensive is cheap. Your job is to make the value understandable. If you're charging more, there should be a reason, and the customer should be able to recognize that reason. This is especially important for small businesses. You may never beat giant corporations on scale, but you can often beat them on attention, expertise, speed, personal relationships, flexibility, local knowledge, and customer experience. Those things have economic value. Rule number 30. Don't spend money to look successful. This is one of the easiest traps for entrepreneurs. Business starts making money. Suddenly, the owner wants the expensive office, the expensive vehicle, the unnecessary renovation, the newest equipment. Not because the business requires it, but because success needs to look like success. Stoicism warns against becoming controlled by appearances. Business owners should remember that. There's a huge difference between an investment and an ego purchase. Before spending significant business money, ask, will this increase revenue? Will this reduce costs? Will this improve efficiency? Will this reduce meaningful risk? Will this materially improve the customer experience? If the answer to all of these is no, ask yourself why you're buying it. Sometimes the smartest investment is the one you don't make. Cash gives a business options, and options become extremely valuable when conditions change. Rule number 31. Your calmness has economic value. Imagine your sales fall unexpectedly. An emotional owner immediately cuts prices, fires employees, stops marketing, changes the entire strategy. Then sales recover 2 weeks later. Now he's created 3 new problems trying to solve one temporary problem. Stoicism teaches a different response. Separate the event from your interpretation of the event. Sales fell. That's the event. My business is dying. That's an interpretation. Before reacting, investigate. Is this seasonal? Did the weather change? Did a major customer delay an order? Did traffic change? Is the decline happening across one product or the entire business? Facts first, action second. This sounds simple, but when thousands of dollars are involved, emotional discipline becomes difficult, and that's precisely why it's valuable. Rule number 32. Make your business useful before trying to make it big. The internet constantly celebrates scale. 100 locations, 1 million customers, $10 million in revenue. But every giant business began by solving a smaller problem for someone. If your first 100 customers don't love the experience, getting 10,000 customers won't magically fix it. Start with usefulness. Can you solve one problem extremely well? Can you make customers want to return? Can you make the economics work? Can you deliver consistently? Then think about growth. Because scale magnifies whatever already exists. Scale a great system and you may create a great company. Scale a broken system and you may create a bigger disaster. The real Stoic business advantage. So after all of these rules, what is the real advantage Stoicism gives an entrepreneur? It's not a secret sales technique. It's not a magical investment formula, and it's definitely not a guarantee that every business will succeed. It's something more practical.